Hi there, welcome back. So we're going to try to do another one of these. I'm just going to do a quick share actually, so that I get the option of a lightweight recording as well as the QuickTime big version. Okay, here we go. So what we're going to be just going through is unhealthy and healthy responses and criticisms, styles of. All right, so it's a kind of communication studies. All right, so let's start off with that one we left off last time. So let's start off here with religions like Buddhism need to move past archaic views on women's roles. So this is in the unhealthy, the orange and the green. However, I can't see a healthy counterpart here. But general one here, religions like Buddhism need to move past their archaic views on women's roles. And it's in the unhealthy style. There's nothing wrong with the criticism. It's the way it's done. So, it's a sweeping critique of religion as a whole, and this ignores potential nuances or efforts at reform as well. And a toxic counterbalance back from that could sound like this. Here we go again with the everything traditional is bad argument. Okay? Let's have a listen to it again. Religions like Buddhism need to move past their archaic views on women's roles. Here we go again with the everything traditional is bad argument. So it's dismissive, the comeback. It's dismissive and it's reductive. It's by doing the here we go again, it's like, yeah, shut up, wave away. It dismisses it without even paying attention. It doesn't acknowledge the issue. It doesn't show any curiosity or concern. Therefore, it antagonizes already, creates divide, division, and conflict, amplifies, escalates conflict. It's reductive. Everything traditional is bad arguments. Like, your arguments are pathetic. Your arguments are not worth listening to or entertaining. They're reductive. All right? So, on the upside, the healthier response, I can see how it might appear that way to some. It's worth looking at how these roles are evolving and where they still hold value. Way better. Let's try that. Just go diagonally here. Religions like Buddhism, just like puts them all in one bucket, and just dumps them all together. Everything, Aboriginal beliefs, Buddhism, and African beliefs, and Irish beliefs, and the Scandinavian beliefs, and Russian beliefs. Chuck them all together. They're all exactly the same. They're all just one thing. Religions like Buddhism need to move past their archaic views on women's roles. I can see how it might appear that way to some. So it also says there are some people who that would appear towards in certain places and times, because it's absolutely true in certain places and times. It's just not true everywhere all the time. That's the point. That's one of the point. Now, I can see, and it's also understanding the appearance as well. That's important. I can see. It's like, yes, I'm agreeing with them actually. So it's aligning straight away. I can see how it might appear, I like that because it's kind of perception. It might appear that way to some. It's not a generalization that everybody thinks like I do. Everybody thinks that all religions are all archaic when they look at women's views. No, there's a lot of women who really like the way religion looks at women's roles. That's true too, but not all. I can see how it might appear that way to some. It's worth looking at how these roles are evolving and where they still hold value. So that's sort of siding on the side, because it's not true that these roles that we're discussing are evolving everywhere. In some places they're devolving. I remember seeing photos of Iranian women in the 70s looking very free and very liberated and all. And then photos after archaic women's roles were imposed heavily, and that we could say was devolving. But again, that would be an opinion. There again would be people who say, oh, it's much better now that we're all covered up and now that we're all sort of kept in line. Before we were really wild or something. I don't know. So and I'm not an apologist for that imposition. It's worth looking at how these roles are evolving and where they still hold value. So the main thing is here about the style, the two different styles. One, here we go again with the everything traditional is bad argument. It's dismissive and reductive. The other second way of dealing with that opinion, I can see how it might appear that way to some. It's worth looking at how these roles are evolving and where they still hold value. It has openness and shared exploration. That's the tone. Dismissive and reductive versus openness and shared exploration. Go away, be on your own, you're nothing. Versus, let's open up to what you're talking about. Let's explore it together. So one's an open map. We're going on a journey together. I'm interested. It's an open door. Versus, bye-bye, dismiss, shut up, a shut door, and I'm going to reduce you because nothing valuable there. Right? Very different. That's what the difference between the toxic, healthy and unhealthy there. All right, so let's continue on down. So this one here, a personal belief or value is challenged. So when a person receives this, they have a personal belief, they have a value, but it gets challenged. What happens here? As a counterpoint, the healthy counterpoint when this happens can be like this. I see your point and value the dialogue. For me, it's always about finding balance and understanding multiple perspectives. So again, a personal belief or value is challenged. A nice comeback, healthy comeback. I see your point and value the dialogue. For me, it's always about finding balance and understanding multiple perspectives. So it's balanced. I see where you're coming at, and I hope you'd like to hear where I'm coming from has also some overlap. It's kind of like that. And it's inclusive as well. I see your point, yeah. And I value the dialogue. We're talking, and I find value in that. Your presence brings something to the table. So for me, it's always about finding balance. Balance is a very easy, key thing there. It's a two-sided thing that's got, value either side. And there's multiple perspectives. It's not just what I say goes, and that's it, shut up. Kind of like that. All right, so let's look at this next one. Under that heading of a personal belief or value is challenged. So this is unhealthy. This may be like a strong feminist for example. So you really believe that gender is something people should just accept at birth? So a note under that: this challenges traditional beliefs about gender, implying rigidity or lack of understanding. So you really believe that gender is something people should just accept at birth? And the retort: clearly you haven't studied this deeply enough to understand the real meaning. So it's condescending and elitist. A healthy response could be, so let's go back again. So you really believe that gender is something that people should just accept at birth? Healthy response: I see this is something you feel strongly about. For me, I think it's a nuanced topic, worth exploring further. What's shaped your perspective? Hey, so that's way better, isn't it? The unhealthy one comes straight back with condescending and elitism. Condescension and elitism. It kind of reminds me of when I was working with multiple schools, about 9 schools, involving them into a multicultural arts festival, arts and music festival. A local rigid, man came up to me, condescending and elitist, and he said, my son also wants to play drums. I told him, you've got to either play drums or grow up, but you can't do both. It was amazingly condescending and elitist. Let's have a look again at that one. So you really believe that gender is something people should just accept at birth? It's a bit woke, maybe, as a sort of thing. But to come back with that, at least to open up, it's balanced and it shows curiosity. That's interesting. And it shows validation. Now I see there's a valid point, rather than, what? Shut up. It's not reducing, it's not shutting down and saying, I'm not interested. And it's not saying, that's a load of rubbish, that's invalid. And it's not taking a condescending look, ray down. And it's not elitism. We are in the right. Who are you? Go out and shut it. It's not shutting out. So a healthy response, not the healthy response, that would be too prescriptive. I see this is something you feel strongly about. So it's validating their strong feelings. For me, I think it's a nuanced topic, worth exploring further. What shaped your perspective? So this other person may have had really strong experiences that have shaped their perspective that this person doesn't know about in this conversation. Good. Continuing to look on at healthy responses and unhealthy criticisms, unhealthy responses, unhealthy criticisms, healthier criticisms, and healthier responses. Let's start from this one here. Can you hold that view and still call yourself compassionate? How can you hold that view and still call yourself compassionate? Okay, and the comeback, well, I've been doing this for years, so I think I know what I'm talking about. All right, so let's look at that. First of all, how can you hold that view and still call yourself compassionate? It frames the challenge. Remember, we're talking about a personal belief or value being challenged. How can you hold that view and still call yourself compassionate? This frames the challenge as a contradiction in values, potentially shaming. How can you? That's disgusting, that value. That's immoral and disgusting. You're personally causing great suffering, and just because you're actually holding that view. So it's potentially shaming. And again, in finding a healthier view doesn't mean we're dismissing the actual issue. The issue may have some, there's some value in it or truth with it. So the toxic comeback from that, well, I've been doing this for years, so I think I know what I'm talking about. It's dismissive, authoritarian, it's self-aggrandizing, and it's dismissive. These are the main kind of 3-4 reasons they're built in. I've been doing this for years. It's like, you've only just picked up the pamphlet. I've got a whole library on this subject. It's really pompous and self-aggrandizing. So I think I know what I'm talking about. I just recalled someone I met who was of this style. I won't go into it, but it was pretty amusing to see someone. I thought, I haven't seen this for years. I used to see it. You used to see it a bit more in the mainstream in schools and stuff. A lot of it's been weeded out, but it was pretty amusing to see it in action. So a healthy response, but let's remember what our thing is here. How can you hold that view and still call yourself compassionate? Healthy response. Compassion is important to me. I try to approach these ideas with openness and reflection. How do you feel compassion fits into this topic? It's clever. Let's go again. What was it again? I like that a lot. It's very skillful chess in this game of to and fro. How can you hold that view and still call yourself compassionate? It's like an accusation of hypocrisy, essentially. How can you hold that view and still call yourself compassionate? Compassion is important to me. I try to approach these ideas with openness. Immediately it makes the other person look like they're approaching these ideas with closedness, doesn't it? I try. It shows them making an effort. They might not succeed, but I try to approach these ideas with openness and reflection. So, yeah, let's reflect about it rather than, I know. It's a closed issue to the other person. How do you feel compassion fits into this topic? So everything about it respects the other person's feelings, and it's showing curiosity about how they see the issue. How do you feel compassion fits into this topic? It's a topic, something we're discussing, not this kind of how can you hold that view and still call yourself compassion? It's like full of opinionated opinion. How can you hold that view? It's like, shame on you. It's not a discussion. It's a batting someone with a stick, isn't it? It's punishing them with shame and still call yourself compassion. It's like, you despicable person, shame on you. So that's why it's so toxic, here. But here, we've got two things pointed out. Anyway, there's more in there. Reflection. It's opening it up to think about it together. It's collaborative. And shared values. I value compassion. I see you value compassion too. How do you feel compassion fits into the topic? See how that works? Very nice. So this makes it healthy. All right. Versus dismissive and authoritarian. Okay. Next one. Here we go. Beliefs like that are exactly why equality is so hard to achieve. So, this again, reminder, it's a personal situation where a personal belief or value is challenged. So the unhealthy way of criticizing comes like this, may come like this, just one example. Beliefs like that are exactly why equality is so hard to achieve. Excuse me, shut down. Oh, wait up. A little bit of unstable. Oh, 4G. Boo. All right. Trying to, if we get 5G, it's way faster. I'm just going to toggle on and off. It sometimes fixes it. No. Oh yeah, there we go. That worked. All right. So. Sorry, I just reminded. We are in a situation where a personal belief or value is challenged. And we get this. Beliefs like that are exactly why equality is so hard to achieve. Beliefs like that are exactly why equality is so hard to achieve. And the unhealthy comeback. It's interesting how people can twist things to fit their own narrative, isn't it? Again, beliefs like that are exactly why equality is so hard to achieve. It's interesting how people can twist things to fit their own narrative, isn't it? So, the first part, beliefs like that are exactly why equality is so hard to achieve. Thank you. Thanks very much. And sorry to interrupt our gripping discussion, but lost the internet. All right. Beliefs like that are exactly why equality is so hard to achieve. This links the belief, the personal belief, to societal problems, creating a confrontational angle. And this other, about the comeback, well, yeah, it's interesting how people can twist things to fit their own narrative, isn't it? Passive-aggressive and accusatory. All right, let me see if I can just retrieve, before we move on to the healthy version of this, I just want to have the, end the other meeting. Oh, I don't. All right, I think we're good to go. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, and there he is. All right, so jolly good. Jolly hockey sticks. Right. So we got to the passive-aggressive comeback from that. And are we ready to go on and have a little look at the healthy version? I think we are. Beliefs like that are exactly why equality is hard to achieve. Yeah, it's interesting how people can twist things to fit their own narrative, isn't it? Passive-aggressive. It's kind of manipulating the argument around where this is toxic meets toxic. This can be even harder to unscramble. It links the belief to societal problems and it creates a confrontational angle. Beliefs like that are exactly why equality. So we're no longer talking about, hey, you've got this idea, I've got this idea. We're talking about, 45 million people believing something, or 90 million or 100 million people's problem. Which is, it's kind of, that's a societal problem. Which, again, it may have be true, but in this, it's making this situation of the discussion nearly impossible to do anything about, and it's just throwing it into a rabbit hole. And the passive-aggressive, it's interesting how people can twist things. Now they're twisting things. And it's twisting things to fit their own narrative as well. So that's the passive-aggressive part. The healthy response wouldn't do either of these things. Not taking a personal sort of thing under discussion and making it huge, which is impossible to do anything about, creates a kind of collapse of, the empowerment and so on. Let's have a look at a healthy response, which involves empathy and constructive engagement instead of this. I can see how you might feel that way. I'd like to understand more about how you think equality could best be achieved. Again, let's see how it sounds as a comeback. Beliefs like that are exactly why equality is so hard to achieve. I can see how you might feel that way. I'd like to understand more about how you think equality could best be achieved. It's open. It shows curiosity. It is constructive. It leads to more engagement. And it shows empathy. Empathy in this, I can see how you might feel that way. Beliefs like that are exactly why equality is so hard to achieve. You can hear the frustration in that. So I can see how you might feel that way. And so my feelings, your feelings, I'd like to understand. So there's the engagement. More about how you think equality could best be achieved. We're constructing together. Rather than, it's interesting how people can twist things to fit their own narrative, isn't it? It's confrontational. It's dismissive. It's discarding. It turns it into twisting things. It turns it into, what do you call that? Spin doctoring into kind of political maneuvering. Whether it is or it isn't, the response diffuses and de-escalates. This is also very important. Alrighty, so let's move on to the next overarching theme. Those were all built on a personal belief or value is challenged. This one, the discussion seems to head towards polarizing views. Wherever we started from, it starts going into a head-to-head, toe-to-toe confrontation. Us and them. You're this and I'm that. I'm that and you're this. You are that and we will never meet. And the division gets bigger. However it gets there and whatever that looks like, a general rule of, a general guideline here might be something like, as a response, a healthy response to this, to pull things into a more useful space for everyone involved, maybe something like this. It's a complex issue with many valid sides. I'm curious how you see it intersecting with other areas like psychology or community well-being. Heads off the war towards common ground. So it's, in that sense, heads off. So it's a redirect, and the place that it goes towards is, one, integration, not disintegration, war, and goes towards shared interests rather than divided common investments or something. It's a complex issue with many valid sides. I'm curious how you see it intersecting with other areas like psychology or community well-being. So the redirect is important. It's important, like when you see things heading towards conflict and confrontation, to redirect towards integration. Disintegration doesn't benefit anyone. Shared interests helps to do that. Looking for some way where there's a mutual beneficial place. All right. So the discussion seems to be heading towards polarizing views. So it might sound like this as an example of that. It's not even up for debate. If you're not actively supporting gender equality, you're part of the problem. A toxic comeback, that's just ridiculous. And anyone who believes that has no idea what they're talking about. So, we've got on one side, the opener. The opener, it's not even up for debate. It says, states a stance here. They're not going to discuss anything. It's a closed issue. If you're not actively supporting gender equality, you're part of the problem. If you're not with us, you're against us. I've actually heard someone throw this in at me one time. So this creates an us versus them dichotomy, pushing a hardline stance. The comeback, that's just ridiculous. It's mocking. And anyone who believes that has no idea what they're talking about, invalidating. They don't have any authority. So mocking and invalidating. It's a blunt dismissal. This response invalidates the other person's view outright and therefore escalates tension. If you've got one person saying, this is not even up for debate, and another one saying, you're ridiculous. So, escalating tension. Now, a healthier response to the initial, it's not even up for debate. If you're not actively supporting gender equality, you're part of the problem. I hear your passion. For me, I think meaningful change often comes from understanding diverse perspectives. What do you think the next steps for gender equality look like? The typology of that is acknowledgement and forward thinking. So the acknowledgement, I hear your passion. This person feels very strongly about this. There's a lot of heat, there's a lot of fuel, and there's a lot of energy in that other person's thing. That's not somebody who's got wishy-washy views. It's not up for debate. If you're not actively supporting gender, you're part of the problem. So there's a lot of fuel in there. I hear your passion. Passion is okay. They have... they've really got something strong they feel strongly about. I hear your passion. So it's validating. For me, I think meaningful change, which is what the person obviously wants, gender equality, from gender inequality, I think meaningful change often comes from understanding diverse perspectives. What do you think? So it's inquiring, it's curious. What do you think the next steps for gender equality look like? So it's nice. What is that? What's the plan? What are the steps? What are the tactics? What's the road ahead that you have in mind? Oof, they can give that. But if they say, yeah, and then you just go, boof, particularly if you use these insulting, disrespectful comments. So that's totally different, and it's going to have an escalation of tension, and that could look like anything. Two-way. If you're facing someone who's got escalating tension, you might also respond back. So violence or an abusive speech can come from that, or communication breakdown, disintegration, and much less likelihood of gender equality getting closer. Quite the opposite. All right, we're moving. Let's move to our next one then. So, overarching thing, the discussion seems to head towards polarizing views. So again, what we're looking for is a redirect towards integration away from disintegration. Now, here it comes. And this side, mostly we're hearing from a somewhat militant feminist towards someone on the other side of the argument in some kind of way. This is a kind of a bit of a presumption underneath this. This is a common difficult situation in my experience in workplaces, in monasticism life, in meditation centers, in both Western and Asian cultures, Eastern cultures. People who defend traditional roles are just clinging to outdated power structures. So this is probably a female feminist, probably, or it's not. I can't assume that. It could be a male apologist or defender of innovative, progressive views on such things, on traditional roles. People who defend traditional roles are just clinging to outdated power structures. A toxic comeback might look like this. Well, maybe if you spend as much time studying as I have, you would understand why that's wrong. So, there again. People who defend traditional roles are just clinging to outdated power structures. Well, maybe if you spend as much time studying as I have, you'd understand why that's wrong. Very conservative. So yeah, let's have a look. Let's have a look at the first part. People who defend traditional roles are just clinging to outdated power structures. So it's unhealthy. Why? It dismisses opposing views outright, increasing polarization. So all defense of traditional roles is all passé. It's like perhaps Mao Zedong in China. Everything old, smash it up. Everything traditional, rip it up, smash it up, and destroy it. Absolute revolution. Unhealthy. Unhealthy not because there's anything wrong again with challenging outdated power structures or challenging those, having a two-way discussion, exploring the value of traditional roles. This isn't doing that. It's just writing it all off. That's the reason it's dismissal. It's dismissive. And it dismisses the opposing views outright. There's no question of seeing what they've got to say. And it increases polarization. You're doing that, we're doing this. So there's a polarization. Competitive ego comeback. Well, maybe if you spend as much time studying as I have, you would understand why that's wrong. This response comes from a place of intellectual superiority, turning the conversation into a battle of egos. It's using superiority, I'm way higher than you, and it's patronizing. it's give it this condescending tone, patting them on the head. You don't understand the real world, sort of thing. So a healthier response to this, let's have a listen to that. People who defend traditional roles are just clinging to outdated power structures. I see this topic brings up strong feelings. I think traditional roles are complex. How do you think they can evolve to meet modern needs? Let's hear it again. People who pretend traditional roles are just clinging to outdated power structures. I see this topic brings up strong feelings. I think traditional roles are complex. How do you think they can evolve to meet modern needs? So, the typology of answer response is de-escalation, away from polarization, and exploration. De-escalates, it understands and validates the strong feelings, or it acknowledges them rather than validates them. Rather than traditional roles just being the thing that needs ripping up and destroying, it acknowledges they are complex. They may have toxic parts, but they may have other parts that are valuable, and they might have parts that are neutral. They're complex, not black and white. How do you think they can evolve? That acknowledges they're not fixed. They can be adapted. They can change. How? In what ways? I'm curious what you're envisaging. So it's open. How do you think they can evolve to meet modern needs? Which acknowledges that the needs of the past and the needs of contemporary time are different. All right. So versus just adopting these two stances or three stances. One, competitive. I'm better than you. Competitive. Ego. Hey, I know. You don't know. And superior. Inferior. You don't understand, you little person. I blah, blah. So patronizing. The term patronizing is a little bit much as well, even these days, because it means fatherly. So it's also a bit generalistic about gender. Interesting, Professor. All right, so let's move to our next. What was it again? The discussion seems to head towards polarizing views. Here we go. You either believe in progress or you're enabling oppression. There's no middle ground. Unhealthy criticism. Comeback, toxic comeback. It's amusing how some people will believe anything just because it sounds new or different. All right, so these two people are not going to get along well. Let's go again. You either believe in progress or you're enabling oppression. There's no middle ground. So this forces a binary choice. There's either this or that, leaving little room for nuance or dialogue. You either say yes, and if you don't say yes, you're saying no. It's like it's black and white thinking, binary choice. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze, I think. Excuse me. So it's amusing. straight away. It's amusing how some people will believe anything. just because it sounds new or different. So it's pompously mocking by saying that it's amusing. This person is a source of amusement. They will believe anything, so there's kind of gullibility in there, and based on novelty. So it's sarcastic and it's belittling. Subtle undermining. So it's using a sort of sardonic, slippery sort of way of belittling the person and undermining them. It takes away validity from what they were saying. What they said, you either believe in progress. This is a very, very important point about society's progress, and not that it regresses or that it becomes stagnant. Or you're enabling oppression. This is an extremely important issue, oppression. When you think of Nazi Germany, or anywhere where there's fascism, as or slavery, or oppression of women in Middle Eastern countries and in Western countries as well. There's no middle ground. So instead of taking up and discussing progress or oppression or the lack of middle ground, which is the issue here, or the forcing of binary choice, which is a kind of oppression of its own, actually, when you think about it. Instead of doing that, you get sarcasm and belittling. This passive-aggressive response, subtly undermining them, just removing any validity about a discussion of progress, a discussion of oppression, or a discussion of nuance, or lack of it. Instead of doing that, we get a passive-aggressive response which belittles the opposing view. So somebody's now going to feel belittled without directly addressing it, sowing further division. So again, disintegration has just amplified. The likelihood of productive discussion has gone nowhere. If anything, we've moved away from any form of progress. We've moved towards disintegration. Healthy response. So let's have a go again. So you either believe in progress or you're enabling oppression. There's no middle ground. That's an important perspective. For me, progress often involves finding balance and listening to diverse views. What's an example of progress that inspires you? That's an important perspective. For me, progress often involves finding balance and listening to diverse views. What's an example of progress that inspires you? So it's healthy because it involves balance, listening to their side as well as, whatever, my side, or other sides of all this discussion. And it invites a collaboration. It has the tone of collaboration. All right, for me, it's like this. What's an example of progress that inspires you? So it brings up the first thing they mentioned, how progress is important. You either believe in progress, they clearly have a belief in progress. What's an example? So there must, there are many examples. It's not just this thing that we wave as a flag. It's, what's an example of progress that inspires you? So inspiration has got a positive tone, a person, a hero, a role model, a great, something that people saw that's uplifting, rather than sarcasm and belittlement, which just closes the heart, closes the discussion, pushes the person into a depressing, aggressive, angry, hostile, insulted mode. Let's take a pause there and Thank you very much again. So I'll be continuing on this series, working my way through this work that I recently compiled.